I've seen this in the stores that things are individually packaged, like meats and things.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We're rolling video. I forgot to roll audio. So I've gotten the crappy.
The following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauai Community Media.
Aloha and welcome to Talkin Trash. I'm Max Richardson.
And I'm Allison Fraley, and today we're talking about food waste reduction, and we have a special guest, Rebecca Majors from Compost Kaua. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Allison.
Hey, thanks so much for coming in. It's great to have you in the studio.
Thanks, Max. Great to see you again.
So we're so excited to have you on the show. We've got a lot of questions we want to ask about food waste in general and about Compost Kaua in particular. But before we get into that, make sure to subscribe to Ho'ike on YouTube or on your podcast app of choice for even more great content. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep up with the stories that shape Kauai. So today we're talking all about food waste and how to reduce it, which is something that I think both of you know quite a bit about. So Allison, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. So for the last 10 years, the EPA has done a lot of work on researching food waste and, how to prevent it and what people can do and the best way to, the most preferred way to manage food waste to the least preferred. So they used to call it the food waste hierarchy, but now it's called wasted food scale. And so the wasted food scale shows us, the best way to manage food. At the top is to prevent food waste in the first place. And when the EPA was doing this research, they were they did a study, like an average family of four, how much money do they throw away when they throw away food waste throughout the year? It happens to all of us, right? We'll overbuy, things will go bad, and so we'll throw them away. And they came up with a cost of about $2,000 on average per year, and that's mainland costs. So that's a lot of money. Food takes a lot of water and...
Wait, that's just wasted food? That's $2,000 per year of just waste?
Thrown away food, not what they spent to buy food.
That's a lot.
Things they ate, but this is stuff they threw away. And so there are a lot of strategies, and they're on our website at kauai.gov/recycling under food waste, strategies that normal people can do to prevent food waste. Things like you do take a list to the store, you plan your meals, and then when you bring produce home, for instance, if something's going to go bad, you coordinate it in your fridge so that you see those strawberries at the front of the fridge, and you're not forgetting that they're back there, and plan your meals accordingly. There's a lot of things you can do, and so if you look at our website, you could check that out. So that's like the very first thing that can really prevent food from ending up in the landfill. Just you're managing it correctly and you're saving money at the same time, which is great. And then, donating food. This is something that businesses could be doing, especially. And I know here we have some really good active food banks, and that's really part of the process. In solid waste management, we don't get that into that. But we're glad that it's happening, and it's strong here on Kauai. So grocery stores that have food that's about to expire, they're taking it to the food banks, and those are getting distributed to the people that need them. Another thing that's happening here on Kauai, and this is the next step on the wasted food scale, is that you feed food to animals. You don't just throw it away, or compost it. First, you want to feed it to animals. And so there's a lot of pig farmers that pick up food from restaurants. And then also I know just people throw scraps of old bread and things like that for chickens in their yard.
That's what I do, actually. I have 3 chickens they're not wild, they're my chickens, but all my table scraps and food that's about to go bad, go scrape it into the chicken coop.
Yeah, so that happens a lot here on Kauai more than other places. So we have actually, if we did a waste characterization study looking at how much food waste we have here on Kauai, and it's actually relatively low compared to other places, even within the state. So overall, we do it's 10% of what goes into the landfill is food waste. And so it's a pretty good job, but of course we can all do more. And that's where you come in actually, Rebecca, because I'll talk more about composting in your backyard at the end of this, but Compost Kaua offers a great service to people that want to not throw away food waste and put it in the landfill. So can you tell us a little bit more about Compost Kaua and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started actually 2 weeks before the pandemic. We didn't know the pandemic was going to happen in March 2020. We went door to door to some of our neighbors' houses, and we asked them if they would be into giving us their food scraps so we could compost them. And the reason why we started this initially, my friend Jesse Brown Clay, and then my other business partner, Nikolai Barca. We started this because we would compost in our own backyard, and we realized how difficult it was. We were each doing it individually. I had kind of like a worm bin. My landlord wasn't super into me composting in the backyard, but I had a worm bin, and he was like, as long as it's out of the way and it doesn't smell. And then Nikolai was composting in his yard, Jesse was composting. We kind of came together as friends and we're like, we're kind of struggling with this. It's hard. Like, how many other people are struggling to do this? Because we saw the importance of the nutrients in our food, and we didn't want to just go into the trash can. We went to our neighbors' houses. We asked them if they'd be into this crazy idea of us taking their food scraps off their hands, and a lot of them said yes. And so the pandemic hit. We had a stay-at-home order from the mayor, and everyone was eating at home. And so we were like, this is kind of a moment where everyone's eating at home, and there might be some food scraps. Hopefully people would consume and eat all of their food. But we know it does happen, like you said earlier. We might forget something in the back of the fridge. Something might just get moldy quicker than we thought it was going to. Or maybe we try to make an Indian dish and it didn't turn out very well, which has happened to me. And you're just like, I just gotta scrap that and start over. So we wanted to provide a easy, convenient service, very similar to what our trash service already is, which is a curbside service where someone comes to your doorstep or to your curb or to your end of your driveway, picks up your trash, your rubbish, your waste, and then takes it away for you. And that's what we thought would be the easiest. Folks were already used to doing that. They already had that habit built in. So we wanted to provide a service that would just segregate the food scraps. And it makes your trash less gross. Like your trash is kind of gross most of the time because we put food scraps in it. And so we learned that when you remove the food scraps and put it in a different container, it actually makes your normal trash a lot cleaner, because it usually just has plastic or maybe wood or metal or just these inert materials that don't really rot. And so, that's kind of why we started Compost Kaua, make people's trash a little bit cleaner and help people out. That's the secondary part is after we would pick it up, we would then compost it. And that was the other part is we realized people weren't getting compost that they could actually use on their garden. So we were struggling to make compost. We talked to our neighbors, they were struggling. So it's kind of like twofold. We help them reduce their waste, divert it to the right location, if you will, and then also make a product that they could then use themselves in their garden, or donate it to a school garden, or even we could offer it to farmers. So then we could grow more local food. So it was kind of this full circle, right? We talk about eating local, supporting local, and I think sometimes recycling or managing your waste local gets sort of forgotten. Recycling is great, but we actually send all those materials off the island, and for us, composting was something that we could do right here on Kauai.
Right on. You're right. Yeah. Great.
All right. Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's great that somebody stepped up and took that role, and it's always what am I trying to say? when members of the community step up and get involved and fill in the gaps, I think that's we need more of that. So good on you and on your partners for being the ones that stepped up and took charge. That's awesome.
Right. I think the way a lot of businesses and inventions are created, right, and innovation is because someone sees a problem. And we realized we probably weren't the only ones that had the problem. So we wanted to figure out what a solution was.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for doing that. I think when a lot of people think about composting, and I know this was kind of what I imagined before I started hosting a show about waste management and became more knowledgeable about it. I think when a lot of people think about composting, they think of like a big smelly pile of rotting stuff in the backyard or like on a farm somewhere. But there's a lot of different sort of ways that is certainly one type of composting, right? But there's a lot of different types. So maybe you could set the record straight for us, tell us about some of the more appealing flavors of composting that might be like acceptable in a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah, so composting and decomposition will happen naturally. Nature does that. If it didn't happen, we would be swimming in animals and plants and food and all sorts of things. So it happens very naturally. What we do at Compost Kaua and what many folks might do in their backyard is they kind of speed up the process. So the county offers the free composting bins that you can use in your backyard. Some folks might build their own kind of container using chicken wire. Some people have the drums that spin, which is actually what we have in our own backyard. So there's many ways that I've heard about composting. So in addition to the county bins, the drums, the chicken wire, like assemblies that people do, I've heard of folks on Oahu who dig holes outside of their apartment buildings and they do bury their compost or their food scraps there. They're trying to figure it out while living in a concrete jungle. There's also worm bins, which I know there's lots of folks who are super excited about that. I know Andy Boyd with the county loves worms.
Yes, I love worms too.
Allison loves worms too. Yeah,
I used to dream of worms, just so everyone knows.
And that's what I did is I started with worms because my landlord didn't want to allow me to compost because he was concerned about the pests, the possible rats, the smell. And I was able to convince him with worms because I kind of started it and then there was no smell. And I was like, see, and the worms speed up that process as well. They really dig through that food and make it go a lot faster. So there's so many different ways to compost. There's definitely... I wouldn't say that there's a wrong way to compost. I don't like to say that because it is like an art and a science. And if you figure it out and you can do it, like keep doing it. I wouldn't say that there's a wrong way. There's just maybe perhaps a more efficient, a faster way, maybe a less smelly way, but it usually breaks down.
Yeah, and what we tell people when they get the composting bins from the county is that you should chop up your food waste as small as possible. So if you're doing food prep and you have a carrot or a core of a lettuce, don't just throw that in there. I mean, chop it, and then they will compost a lot faster.
Yes,
yeah.
Yep. So there's a little bit of prep work for sure, yep, to make it work more efficiently and to have it work better, yeah. And then... having the right materials. So when you do compost, you don't just need your food scraps. You do need what they call the browns or the carbon-rich feedstocks. And so you want to combine those together. So it's not just, if you just do food waste, maybe that is the wrong way.
That is the wrong way.
That would be the wrong way, just food waste. So there may be a wrong way because it will be really sloppy and gross and messy. Yeah. But you can compost on many different scales. You can, industrial size is great. I would say industrial size composting is definitely a volume reduction of food scraps and food waste going to the landfill. And then I would say when you're doing it in your backyard, you have a little bit more control over what your final product will be. And so you can kind of create this more artisanal compost. You can add other ingredients to it. You can add like rock phosphate or, different, maybe some sort of other fertilizers or different like natural materials or organic materials to it to make this like really beefed up, awesome compost. And also just make sure there's not, usually when you do it in your backyard, you can reduce the plastics and and all of the other rubbish that might get thrown in. Whereas in a large industrial scale facility, they have way less control.
Yeah, it's just hard to monitor for small things like that.
Totally.
Big operation.
Exactly. Yep. When you start scaling up, and there's definitely I've bought in bagged soil and compost before from the box stores, and I found like cut up pieces of credit cards. I've found
really?
pieces of zip tie pieces that are kind of chopped up.
Well, it makes sense. Yeah, I guess it's like the composting equivalent of you bite into a chicken McNugget and there's like a bone in there. And I get the first, you're like, how does that happen? And then you're like, well, they make like 12 million pounds of this stuff a day.
Right. Yep.
I've never gotten a bone.
Oh, I'm lucky you. It's happened to me more than once.
Well, at least you know the chicken's real then, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
There
it
you
wasn't
go.
grown in a vat. It came from a chicken. Yeah. So artisanal compost, is that a Compost Kaua trademark?
Yeah, did
or
you
is
just
that-
make that up? That
because
was a good
if
one.
you didn't trademark it yet, I'm going to run out after this taping and trademark it myself.
We haven't trademarked it yet. No, we've had people tell us to call our compost boutique grade
I like that.
compost.
Yeah.
But I'll have to bring that back to my other business partners so we can finalize and see what we're going to really call it.
Yeah.
So what is, we were talking about finding cut up credit cards. What is the strangest thing that someone has tried to compost? Like you open one of these buckets and you're like, why is that in there?
Yeah, this is so fun. So we honestly don't find those fun things until when we're turning the piles or when we start sifting it.
What about when you dump it? Because I'm on TikTok and I watch your videos of you guys dumping the stuff. And do you find it then?
Sometimes it's just a flurry. Is it a flurry or a flurry of us kind of dumping buckets? Yeah. So it does kind of get lost. And so sometimes we'll see things. We'll see the little twist ties, or we'll see the bag of oranges with the oranges still full, like in them, and then someone just threw the whole bag in there, and we'll take that out. But sometimes little things we miss, and we'll see them when we're turning our piles, or then at the end when it's finished and curing and we're sifting it to get it ready to bag up. We'll find things. But it's very common at that stage of what you're talking about, Allison, where we find the potato peelers.
Oh.
Those are really easy to find. I've found oven mitts at that stage as well, because they're usually big. I've found it, at one point it looked like it was a rag, but it looked like someone had wiped up mac and cheese that they had spilled and then like balled up the rag and then like threw it in
the whole
compost.
thing in the compost
Yeah,
bin?
they were like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to put that in my washer. We'll just compost it.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because I was like, I know what they did here. Like they just cleaned up a mess. And then, we found beer bottle caps, common things where someone just probably thought it was the trash. But I would say the weirdest thing and the sweetest thing that I loved when we were sifting was a 3-legged like porcelain pig or like terracotta pig, which someone who was a volunteer was there was like, I think that's like a good luck charm.
Oh.
I think I looked it up. I'm not sure if it's like a Chinese pig or something, but yeah. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I actually washed it off and I have it in my shower. Yeah. And I just like sits there. So we find a lot of knives, spoons, forks. I don't think I have to buy any more utensils for a while. We get a lot of people's, I found like golden spoons, really nice utensils. Yeah. That, we get to call our own now.
Makes you think. I guess maybe somebody's like scraping their plate into the compost and they're like, whoops. And they're like, well, I'm not reaching in there.
Right. They're like, I don't want to touch that. So thank you.
Oh, you know what? You were mentioning how much you like their TikToks. Yeah. And I actually, before we came in and before you guys showed up, our social media manager at Hoike, Olivia, she was mentioning how good your guys' social media is, and she was like, "Yeah, their social media is great," and like so she watches you guys.
Yay!
And,
Yeah, you guys check it out.
Yeah.
Shout out to Juliana, our marketing coordinator.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch.
Definitely, if you're not following these guys on socials already, the stuff is at the bottom of the screen, or if you're listening as a podcast, we'll put it in the show notes. But you should follow these guys on socials because they're informative and entertaining.
Yes.
We try to have fun.
So have you ever had like a compost fail moment, like a particular pile that went horribly wrong or something along those lines?
I don't know if this is good for business. We've learned a lot. So since we started in 2020, we're now 5 years in. Like I said earlier, we were composting in our own backyards individually, and we realized it was kind of difficult for us. We were doing it, and then we were also doing it at a smaller scale. And so when we did start collecting the food scraps from our neighbors and kind of scaling up, we started with like 5 friends and family members, and we were just offering our service for free, and just so we could learn what it was like to be doing multi-family households all at the same time with their own food scraps. So, I mean, I don't, at this moment, remember any, like, huge fails, but there was definitely lessons along the way as we were growing. Realizing, there's a lot of water in this pile, from the food scraps, because food waste and food scraps are about like 85-90% water. So you definitely need a lot more carbons or carbon-rich materials versus when you are composting grasses and leaves and things like that. So we definitely learned like, this is soppy, soupy mess, and we need more carbon, more wood chips, more. We actually started with bamboo leaves. We had a lot of bamboo leaves that we would rake up, so we'd need like more and more and more. And when we first started, we were also using worms. So
How did you use the worms?
Yeah, so we our piles were small enough that they were heating up, but they weren't getting so hot that the worms would still go in them.
So they were on the top of the pile. They weren't in the ground.
Yeah, so they're the special types of worms.
They're red wigglers.
Yeah, that like to they usually like to eat the detritus or the leaves and other debris and things that is in the surface. They're not the ones that go deep down. And so we put those in there, and they would dig through all of that and eat the food scraps. They helped us with the process, and they made it a lot faster. And when the worms disappeared one time, we were like, okay, we did this wrong, because it is animal husbandry. It is like taking care of a pet. You have to make sure it's got the right water, enough air, the right foods to eat. It has to like its little home, and if they don't like it, they're gonna leave.
Yeah, and I want to share a story about that. Like about 20 years ago when we first started, more than that, first started the composting program, we did do worm bin distribution and worm distribution. And we had so many people interested, so we did these workshops where we had people come in and get a bin set up, and you can do a special setup, I'm sure you know, and where you have the worms live in the bin, and then there's a plastic underneath where the water drains out, because it's a kind of a wet process. And we gave out all these worms to all these people, and then they came back about 6 months later. They're like, well, we need more worms. I'm like, well, what happened to your worms? Everybody, they loved their worms, but they just let them free in the yard, and then like chickens were eating them, or they weren't taking care of them like they were supposed to. So worms can be really fun, but once you get them out of the bin, they could be at risk.
Right. Yep. So when we first started, we had like a contained area, that we had lined, and so the worms kind of stayed in there. But they can crawl over walls, surprisingly. I mean, they are not, because they don't have legs does not mean they cannot get out if they want to. If they don't have the right conditions, they'll leave, and you can't just put them in the ground or put them on the ground. They will escape for sure. Yeah, so I would say, yes, we had a lot of like minor little fails, just learning, and it's always a lesson, like, okay, more water, the worms didn't like this, or, the piles didn't get hot enough, or it got smelly because it was anaerobic, there was not enough air, so we need to turn it more, or maybe it's too dry, or, so, we've learned a lot, but I can't think of like a big fail, because I try to not think that way.
That's good. Well, I have a question. So you talked about the proportion of carbon, dry brown carbon versus the wet green, right? Nitrogen based, right? Those are the ratios that you're looking at, is 3 parts carbon, right, to 1 part nitrogen. Is that it?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
And
so that's what we try to educate people about when they get our composting bins. So what do you use as your carbon base?
So when we first started our business, we were using bamboo leaves. We had an abundance of those. We have used shredded paper from offices. That can be hit or miss, because sometimes there's shredded plastic in there, which we'll end up having to sift out. We've used shredded cardboard. And that one's great. Cardboard's great. And now at this point, the scale that we're at is we work with tree trimmers and landscapers, and we get wood chips. And we source those wood chips locally where we're at in Wailua. So we call the tree trimmers, and if anyone's nearby, they'll drop off with us. And then that way we can monitor if, see if there's any CRB. We know exactly where it came from. We know it's in our neighborhood. We're not, having it driven from Moloa or from the south side over to us. We also want to reduce the fuel use and the traffic. And
I just want to cut in because you said CRB, and I want to make sure everybody knows that that's the coconut rhinoceros beetle. Oh. It's an invasive species. It's a terrible thing that's happening right now on Kauai, and I'm really glad you guys are aware of it, looking out for it, because they're just, if you drive by, I'm just going to give everybody an example. If you drive by the golf course in Wailua, if you look at the trees, a lot of them have been impacted by the coconut rhinoceros beetle. So.
Yeah,
it's a crisis. The
it
coconut
is.
rhinoceros beetle. Yeah,
but we call it CRB.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you for sometimes I'm just rolling off my it just rolls off my tongue.
Yeah.
But and so we want to source locally because our intention is as Max mentioned earlier, those large composting facilities or industrial scale, we don't really want to be that ourselves. Compost Kauai's vision is to have our model replicated around the island in different regions and areas so that each community can kind of take care of their own waste, so we don't have to truck it to Keikaha and put the burden on one community. And so we try to lead by also sourcing our wood chips and our carbon sources close by. So that way we can, and so we hope that others can do what we're doing and replicate this and do the same thing. So then the tree trimmers aren't having to drive from the south side all the way up to Moloa to drop it off. They can find a local composting operation or facility somewhere on the south side for them.
That's great. Yay.
Awesome. So I know Compost Kauai is a service that handles all of the dirty work for the consumer, right? But I know that the county also has a program that's a little more DIY.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, Allison?
Yeah. So for more than 20 years, we've been giving out free backyard composting bins to residents. They're called the Earth Machine, but they're not a machine. There's no moving parts. It's a simple system. It's a 3-foot high black dome, and it's 3 feet wide and really easy to put together. You put it straight onto the ground. You can secure it to the ground. It's not going to blow away. And it can take your food and yard waste. So it's a lot different than what you're doing because you're just doing food waste. This, you do have to put some yard waste in there. In fact, like I talked about earlier, you need 3 parts dry brown material. That could be dried leaves, dried grass clippings, paper, shredded paper, or anything that is a plant material that's dried, versus your food waste is going to be your green nitrogen-based material. So you don't want to put too much of. You want to really keep the ratios 3 parts dry, 1 part wet green waste or food waste. And so again, that's why it gets a little complicated, but it actually, it's not that hard. And it's not anything that's going to go crazy. It'll just decompose as you put it away from your house, and you have some place to manage this product. And if you do it right, you'll end up with a good compost product to put on your plants. And so, we like the fact that we give them away for free. It's something that lasts a really long time. It lasts for about 10 years. So it's actually our cheapest waste diversion program that we have, because we do like a $50 investment for 10 years worth of waste diversion. People are they're telling us that they're doing about a ton a year of material in their backyard. These are self-reports, from surveys that we do of people that get the bins. So if people want the bins, they can call our office and make an appointment to pick one up at the Kauai Resource Center. Our phone number is 808-241-4841. Just give us a call to get a free bin.
Awesome. So it sounds like the average citizen on Kauai is kind of spoiled for choice, because if you have the time and the inclination, you could do it yourself for free, or you can pay and have all of it taken care of for you. So it sounds like that's kind of an option for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for part 1 of our interview with Compost Kaua. Tune in next time for part 2. We'll learn about potential mascots, some of the challenges facing Compost Kaua today, and we'll take a tour of the Kekaha landfill. Until then, stay trashy. Aloha.